Now, sadly, Peggy Carter was no match for the Scarlet Witch, and in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Wanda murders her along with the other members of the Illuminati. But fans will be very excited to learn that the actress isn't quite done with Peggy Carter just yet. In a recent interview, Haley Atwell discussed her aspirations for Peggy's future in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, when could she return? And how exactly? Let's take a closer look at what the actress had to say. First up, the actress behind the popular character Peggy Carter has revealed what her future holds in regards to the MCU. Haley Atwell has a shaky update on Peggy Carter's future in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, following the death of her version in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But before we get right into that, a little backstory. Atwell's character quickly rose to the status of fan favorite supporting character in the MCU, particularly due to her desire for a better, more equal world and the chemistry she shared with Captain America star Chris Evans, despite having a larger role in the MCU's small-screen universe after making her debut in Captain America: The First Avenger. For half of the Avengers films, the first Captain America sequel, The Winter Soldier, the first Ant-Man film, Agent Carter, and more recently Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Atwell would return in the same character, which is very impressive considering how often characters are recast within Marvel. In a recent interview with Digital Spy, Haley Atwell discussed her time playing Peggy Carter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Atwell would give a pessimistic update on her prospective MCU future after expressing some dissatisfaction with her arc in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, noting that it is ultimately in Marvel's hands, but the character is no longer mine. Peggy Carter's prospective future in the MCU may give Atwell pause, but that doesn't imply the door is completely shut on her rejoining the team. Now, it would have been reasonable to assume that the epic conclusion to the Infinite Saga would serve as Peggy's final chapter. If this were to occur, it would provide the finest possible ending for her and Steve, given that Avengers Endgame ended with Evans's Steve Rogers remaining in the past and marrying Peggy. But as the MCU descended into its multiverse saga, Atwell returned to the series for both What Ifs and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, allowing her to take on the super-powered version of her enduring hero. Some people might think Peggy's future in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is in jeopardy after the Benedict Cumberbatch-led sequel's cinematic scene in which Captain Carter meets her demise at the hands of Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch. The mid-credits scene from Season 1, in which Captain Carter and Nastasha Romanoff found the Hydra Stomper armored and a person inside enthusiastically thought it was Steve, will be the starting point for the What If Season 2 premiere. The next season's footage presented at San Diego Comic-Con this year showed it would be Steve. Now, there is a lot of reason to believe Peggy Carter will be returning sooner than we think. We know Marvel would get a kick out of it because the viewers would be extremely excited. We really hope to see that familiar face back soon. Speaking of Peggy Carter, what are some of her most memorable and iconic moments from her time in the MCU? One of the pillars of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Peggy Carter. Haley Atwell, an actress, has played Peggy in a one-shot movie, 3 films, and 2 TV episodes since the character's debut in Captain America: The First Avenger 2011. It makes sense that Peggy appears in the Marvel Cinematic Universe the most frequently. The runner-up for that honor is Howard Stark, although unlike Atwell's solo performance as Peggy, Stark has been portrayed by 3 different actors. Now, let's take a look back at some of Peggy's most memorable moments from her time in the MCU. First up, rightfully so, Michael Carter's death. Margaret Peggy Carter worked as a codebreaker at Bletchley Park prior to becoming a spy. She became a field agent, as was revealed in the Agent Carter episode Smoke and Mirrors. Peggy and Fred Wells, a British Home Office employee who escaped deployment, became engaged in 1940. Peggy's older brother Michael put her forward for the Special Operations Executive (SOE), an espionage organization that was hiring women as field operatives as World War II raged across Europe. Peggy didn't think she was currently cut out for that kind of field work. Fred didn't either. All he said was, "That's not our Peg." Michael was saddened by Peggy's rejection of the SOE job since he thought she was meant to fight and truly had what it took to succeed in this kind kind of role. Michael questioned whether Peggy's childhood ideal of living an adventurous life had altered or if she had simply allowed other people to determine her priorities in life. The connection between the Carter siblings was obviously strained, given everything that occurred at Peggy and Fred's engagement party. Peggy was devastated when Michael was killed in action and left Peggy to be all alone. She found herself thinking about her brother's probing questions as she grieved. Did she want to live a routine life with Fred, or did she want more? She made a symbolic gesture by taking off Fred's wedding band and replacing it with the SOE recruitment letter. Michael's passing essentially changed the entire course of Peggy's life from that very moment. She would later go on to become one of the Strategic Scientific Reserve's top agents because of its SSR. She was also compelled to acknowledge the truth and the reason she called off their engagement, that Fred was not the love of her life. This moment is super memorable and something that helped literally define Peggy and turn her into the woman we all know and have come to adore. The moment she got a new partner. Agent Carter's first season began in 1946 as Peggy Carter began a new life in post-war New York. Peggy started working discreetly to help her old acquaintance Howard Stark, who had been accused of having his weapons stolen because the men in the SSR were marginalizing her. Introducing Edwin Jarvis, his butler. Howard gave Peggy a new ally. Peggy was hesitant to open up to people after Steve was thought to have died, even more so after Colleen O'Brien, her roommate, died from a bullet intended for her. However, Peggy and Jarvis's relationship altered both of them. They bonded quickly and became lifelong friends. Together with Jarvis, Peggy came to understand that she was not alone. Jarvis emphasized that Steve Rogers had his own support system in Peggy, even though many others worshipped and viewed him as flawless. Peggy acknowledged that everyone required a friend to help them mend their scars by letting Jarvis into her life. Angie Martinelli, an aspiring actor, became a buddy of Peggy as well. After a fellow agent passed away in Time and Tide, Angie became Peggy's shoulder to grieve on. In Ascent to Air, Angie also displayed her developing acting abilities by distracting Peggy from the SSR. Angie might not have had as much of an overall impact on the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Howard Stark or Edwin Jarvis did. She did, however, matter to Peggy Carter. Next, when Peggy realized her value, Peggy and her co-workers thwarted Leviathan's plan to attack Times Square in valediction. Peggy entered the SSR to a standing ovation the morning following her hand-earned achievement. Her all-male co-workers for the first time expressed appreciation for what she had done. However, when a senator from the United States entered, nobody spoke up, and Jack Thompson claimed sole responsibility for saving New York City. Thompson's excessive praise irritated Daniel Sosa because Peggy deserved praise for leading the SSR to victory. Peggy assured Sosa that she was unconcerned. "I know my worth," she declared. This is a significant and defining moment since it took Peggy a long time to let go of her desire for others to respect her. She did, however, learn to rely on her own inner motivation and determination inside a validation from external factors, aka other people. Haley Atwell expressed her astonishment at the event's emotional impact on viewers, particularly the younger one. At conferences, little boys and girls would approach her and say, "I know my value too." Atwell claimed that it gave her character depth and that she was humbled by how people had responded. This profoundly changed Peggy Carter's life. She was able to put up with so much sexist mockery from people who disregarded her because of it. It was also the reason Sosa worked up the nerve to approach her. On that, however, later, when Peggy meets her match. After Wilkes exits the rift and Whitney Frost and her friends knock out Peggy in the desert, the narrative begins. The first 6 minutes of A Little Song and Dance are set in a musical style and show Peggy's inner thoughts about her love triangle with Sosa, Wilkes, New York, and Dottie Underwood. Peggy comes up with a risky scheme to save Wilkes and stop Frost as the show progresses. Thompson takes action in the meantime that might ruin everything. It was a well-written and executed plot, especially for the penultimate episode. Whitney Frost's influence on Peggy and the team is revealed as a magnitude of her talent is showed to the audience. Peggy has finally met her match in Dottie. Next up, the moments we see Peggy and the others working together. Peggy and Jarvis seek to take Jane Scott's body in the hopes that the zero matter in the body may permanently restore Jason Wilkes, who has been infected with zero matter and is supposedly dead. In reality, he has been made invisible. They encounter Whitney Frost, Wynn Everett, who absorbs all the zero matter before coercing Calvin Chadwick, Curry Graham, to steal an atom bomb, as luck would have it. It's great to see Peggy teaming up to save the world with people she can trust instead of going alone. The episode had a new feel to it, and in addition to the mystery-solving scenes, there were plenty of humorous ones as well, which helped to lighten the mood after some of the more intense ones. Unfortunately, guys, that is all the time we had for today. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to let us know your thoughts down below in the comments.